Welcome back. People are going to get hurt. People already have been. Congressman Steve Scalise was gunned down and almost killed last year on the ball field by a deranged follower of Bernie Sanders. But now up to 10 explosive devices sent to the homes of former Presidents Clinton and Obama and former Vice President Joe Biden, actor Robert De Niro. And the question, also CNN, what role, if any, is President Trump's constant bashing of political opponents and the media having on an increasingly volatile environment? And joining us for more are Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report. Thank you both for joining us today. And I'm going to set this up by Sarah Huckabee Sanders' response to that very question outside the White House today.
Packages to someone no more than Bernie Sanders was responsible for a supporter of his shooting up a Republican baseball field practice last year. The idea that this is at the hands of the president is absolutely ridiculous.
So, Rod, that's the question to you. I think the difference is I don't recall Bernie Sanders saying the kind of things against Republicans that the president says against Democrats or the media. Bernie Sanders, correct me if I'm wrong, he's a pretty policy-oriented guy.
Yeah, I think, though, that it's essentially right because other than the time when Trump said, you know, I'll pay for your legal fees to the one guy, which was stupid and out of line, he hasn't said go out and hurt people. He hasn't been calling for violence. He hasn't been calling for bombings or shootings or anything. Neither did Bernie. Now, I want to say that because I think that this is a consistency that's really important. I said on your show that Bernie Sanders had nothing to do with that. He had no responsibility. That's the individual. The guy that speared Rand Paul in the back in his yard and broke his ribs and punctured his lungs, who was a big Hillary Clinton supporter. That is not on Hillary Clinton at all. But it's not on Hillary Clinton. It's on him, his personal responsibility. And Trump's rhetoric is different for an American president, it's true, but individuals going out and acting and doing violent things based on political rhetoric is on the individual, not on the politician.
Yeah, the ultimate responsibility, I do believe, is on the individual as well. And I think there's a big difference between some psycho who is out there sending off package bombs to anyone, for that matter. It could be Ted Kaczynski. That's them. But the political rhetoric that we hear, especially coming from the president, does go over the line when he recognizes that he applauds somebody who can body slam a reporter and gives him respect for that. That doesn't help. So what he's responsible for is the attitude and the rhetoric that we have amongst ourselves these days. He's not without responsibility, but I agree, he's not responsible for that.
Actually, before you do, let's take a look at what the president said about the body slamming incident.
But Greg is smart. And by the way, never wrestle him. You understand that? Never. Any guy that can do a body slam, he's my kind of... He's my guy. I had heard that he body slammed a reporter. And he was way up. And I said, oh, this was like the day of the election or just before. And I said, oh, this is terrible. He's going to lose the election. Then I said, well, wait a minute. I know Montana pretty well. I think it might help him. And it did.
Republicans have been talking about the angry mobs of the Democrats for weeks, but there you have the crowd there celebrating what the president's talking about, a congressional candidate body slamming another individual, whether they're a reporter or not.
Right, and so I'm just going to be honest with you. I just saw it as Trump on the stump out there doing his reality TV entertainment speech. This is part of who he is as president. We got to recognize that when he goes out and does these things, he is part of his stuff. A big part of his thing is entertainment value. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was funny, but I also condemned it when the guy did it. I thought maybe he should lose. I mean, this was wildly irresponsible and uncontrolled physical behavior. You can't do that. You can't accept it. This was a joke.
Really bad time to take a break, but we have our conversation on the pipe bomb threats continues. We are talking about the increasingly dangerous political climate, and joining us for more are Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report. And Susan, before we took the break, there was a point you wanted to make.
Well, I just wanted to say that, we're now hearing it from the Democrats, where before we used to rise above it and not get caught up in the rhetoric, and now we're hearing people like Eric Holder, who comes along and says, if they go low, we kick them. I mean, granted, it's not as dramatic as some of the things we're hearing from the president, but it feeds right into that mentality.
The difference is that Holder afterwards clarified his comments and said that he did not mean physical violence.
How do you not get physical violence out of that? And I get it. He doesn't really mean it. We all say things we don't really mean. But I'm just saying that we're now stooping to the same level, and that to me is ridiculous.
You make an interesting point, because there's been a lot of talk of that scene a couple of weeks ago when Ted Cruz and his wife were chased out of that D.C. Restaurant. There were people all over the map on that. I know former Congressman David Jolly said, Rod, when you're a public official, you have to come to expect something like that. Bill Maher, whose show I love, said you shouldn't chase Ted Cruz out of restaurants. You should chase him out of office.
So
correct.
So this is amazing, because I'm totally agreeing with Bill Maher, whose show I can't.
I'm writing it down.
Whose show I can't stand.
I'm your witness.
Yep.
October 22.
And I could hardly be more disappointed in David Jolly. I mean, we had him speak at Sarasota Republican Club a couple of years ago, and he seemed like a pretty good conservative and all. And in the age of Trump, he's gone in that never Trumper thing that just goes to derangement. He said that he went further than that in the tweet that I saw of his, because I retweeted it with a comment. He said that they should be doing this. You should expect this as an office holder. You should expect this. And that is way out of line. I don't know what happened to David Jolly's head, but it is not on right anymore. Bill Maher's is screwed on more right.
But getting back to the question about whether the president himself is responsible for at least some of the overheated rhetoric and actions, John Brennan, well, we'll get there. I was going to talk about former CIA Director John Brennan, but we'll get to that later. You're right, Rod, that President Trump did not create this kind of talk, but I don't think any president in modern history has gone after political adversaries and the media like this.
Not like this, no, not at all. I mean, for one thing, he's really the first one that had a Twitter account of any real value, and boy, is he not afraid to use it. But you're right. I mean, he does. He goes after him. I mean, he name calls. I've said this a lot of times. This is unbecoming of the president. I don't like this about it. But if I'm weighing it on the scale of what he's accomplished as president and the condition of the country, other than this sort of political discourse issue that we have here, which is definitely a two-edged sword, I think he's actually been a really good president. But I don't like the way he comports himself, and how he communicates with us.
But this is the problem, is that you have somebody who behaves like this, and you say, but I'll put up with it because I appreciate his policies or what he's accomplished. And that's our fault. That's our problem, because it's not acceptable.
Let's pause for a second, because I did want to show you what the former CIA Director John Brennan said, and to remind folks, CNN got one of those pipe bomb packages yesterday, but it was addressed to John Brennan at CNN.
Donald Trump has not helped to encourage the type of civil discourse and public engagement. And his rhetoric too frequently, I think, fuels these feelings and sentiments that now are bleeding over into potentially acts of violence.
Now, I know you don't like John Brennan, but respond to what he's saying there.
He's wrong. I mean, I don't think that it's Trump's fault.
Wrong?
He's wrong because what we're doing is saying that Trump says things that are politically harsh about his opponents, and there's violence out there. Therefore, the violence is Trump's fault. When we had violence that preceded
First of all,
Trump.
that's not what he said. He said he was talking about civil discourse. And if I am going to agree with you on the fact that the pipe bomber is responsible for his own actions, you have to give the president is responsible for his own actions.
And we have to take a pause again. We are just getting warmed up. Our conversation on the pipe bomb threats will continue after a quick break, so stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about the increasingly dangerous political climate out there, and we are being joined by Rod Thompson of RevolutionaryAct.com and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report. Rod, would you mind if I pick on you a little bit?
Have at it.
Go right ahead.
Because we were talking during the break, and you say that the time that you get pushback from your own party is when you come onto this broadcast and say things about the president. But when you look at you are prolific in terms of the revolutionaryact.com and on Twitter these days. You do a lot of calling out of the Democrats, and we got some of them on the screen. About Hillary Clinton, I think. Hillary and said she won't be civil to a party that is trying to destroy anything that she stands for. Okay, let's look at what the Republicans are doing and see what happens that is destroying. And then also the next one, Democrats are showing their true colors and returning to their roots of racism, division, and violence. But I don't see you calling out Republicans who are saying equally awful things in the public sphere.
All right, so largely I don't see Republicans saying equally awful things. I have a problem with I have a problem with the president's rhetoric, and I've said that I have a problem with his tweets. I have a problem with how he puts things. I have a problem with name calling. Period. I never allowed it with my kids. I don't appreciate it from my president. I don't like any of that at all. But if we're looking at people like Mitch McConnell or Charles Grassley or any of that sort of Republican leadership, I don't see that sort of issue going on.
But by reading your tweets, you're not calling the president out on Twitter. You're not calling him out in your columns on the revolutionaryact.com. You're not calling out those crowds who keep on saying lock her up, lock her up.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff. So no, I'm not I'm not calling them out there.
That's because he's one of them.
That's because. No, but I mean, it's not an unfair criticism. But part of the reason I've given it a lot of thought, as a former journalist, I've given it a lot of thought how much I should try and be balanced with it. And part of my thinking on it, Alan, is that the media and the left media are so consistently doing this that, in a sense, a lot of what I'm doing is providing the other side. Now, that doesn't help the siloing effect. I understand.
But isn't that part of the problem? Because if you only got your news from your Twitter feed or the revolutionaryact.com or Fox News, you are seeing...
Or CNN.
Let's debate that. But you're only seeing the criticism one way.
Well, and I would like to comment as well, too, because I would not look at it as should I be balanced or not. You're either calling somebody out for poor conduct or you're not. What you shouldn't be doing is giving people a pass because they think like you or they talk like you. That's not a question of being balanced. That's just a question of being right.
So I don't think I'm giving anybody a pass because they think like me or talk like me. What I'm saying is that the president's rhetoric to me is of far less importance than his actions as chief executive of the country.
And that's a problem as well, too, because it shouldn't be. It should be one of the same. At least when Obama was in office and he saw that, he called them out on it. And what did he say? Don't boo, vote. I mean, there's a difference. We look to the leader of our country to set the standard, and he sets a horrible standard.
President Trump just said in the speech, I think it was today, he just said that what we don't do is violence. What we do is we beat them at the ballot box. So he was saying the exact same thing. Well, fine. But so if he agrees with Obama, that's a good thing, right?
But it takes him 5 seconds to change that.
But the question is, should we be calling out our own party?
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at something. A couple of weeks ago, the president was here right before the primary in support of Ron DeSantis. We were doing live reports at the rally. Jess, our reporter, was there. This is what happened.
Alan, we're right in the middle of all of it right now.
I was sitting right here.
Right. So what you're saying is there's stupid punk kids out there that see a camera and do idiotic things in front of it. Yes.
Which they've done for a long time.
And that's always been with us. We're always going to have those jokers out there. I'm not going to attribute that to the president or to a political movement. That is a couple of yo-yos.
Why don't Republicans and Democrats, when they see this kind of language or see this kind of behavior, call it out to make it clear that
let me let you go for a little bit on it, because when Nancy Pelosi, right, when she was in Miami, is that right?
Yeah.
And she was, a lot of Republican leaders said this is not acceptable, we should not be doing this. You saw very little of that. Actually, you've seen the opposite from congressional leaders on the Democrat side, when you've had Republicans being ushered out of restaurants, being spit on in movie theaters, being accosted at the airports, in elevators, and on and on and on. You are not seeing it. The few times we've seen it come at Democrats. You've seen conservatives and Republicans say that's not acceptable. I want to see more of that from Democrats, and I think that's fair to ask it.
Well, okay, and you do see it, because I call my party out on this behavior all the time.
Susan, yes, I want to see it from congressional Democrats, though.
Thank you. But what I get in return is a lot of hate spent back my way as well. Of course, the difference is I don't care, because I care more about my party than I do the other party. So I am going to hold them to a higher standard. I want to point out something, and that I think we've lost in this country. You know, during the McCarthy hearings, when he was an attorney named Joe Walsh, challenged McCarthy and said, have you no sense of decency? That was the turning point in the McCarthy hearings, and after that it stopped. It actually meant something. We need to start hearing that more from everyone, not just anyone in particular, but we treat our neighbors poorly now because we don't agree with them politically. We see a sign on the yard, and we get that way.
Comment from Joe Walsh on the McCarthy thing was actually quoted by conservatives during the Kavanaugh hearings and Christine Blasey Ford's accusations, because they saw the equivalent of the white paper. I hold in my hand this white paper because there was no evidence at all, and we were all supposed to accept it and down this man.
Well,
they saw a parallel there. No, exactly. We don't know.
We don't know.
Here's the question, Rod.
It's a great quote, though.
You know, the president made comments the other day on teleprompter in the East Room, I believe, in which he said we need to change our civil discourse. We need to be one country and debate our differences in a civil fashion. But then he takes to Twitter, calls CNN on the day that these devices are delivered fake news and so forth. Presidents are unique and are in unique positions to have the bully pulpit. Why does he not stand up and say we need to be civil and refrain from the bombs on?
That's why.
Because number one, he can't refrain from part B.
He can't.
He just can't constitutionally. He cannot. But the fourth estate has a responsibility here too. CNN's been running a headline all day today, and he's not been describing these people that got the bombs as Democrats. They've been describing them in their headlines as Trump targets. That's CNN. That's on CNN. That is totally irresponsible
you have me
verbiage.
at a disadvantage because I have not seen that.
Yeah, I haven't either. But in the same token, they were one of the targets. So,
well, it was John Brennan, who actually works at MSNBC.
Well, yeah, but he was at CNN when the CNN alarms went off. So
no, he wasn't.
No.
But wait, I'm pretty sure I was watching.
Okay. The bomber screwed it up.
The bomber screwed it up. I get that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't following
the bottom line,
playbook.
and this is our last segment. So, Rod, what is your takeaway? And let's look at this from perspectives that we haven't before. I mean, what would you like to see the president do from here on out?
Yeah, I'd like to see the president refrain from Part B, as we were talking about earlier, because he can say the right things so often. The problem is that then, the media or somebody else gets under his skin and he fires off the wrong thing then, and he undercuts himself. Then the media flames up with that. So I would like to see the president restrain himself better. And honestly, by and large, he's been doing better for the last few months, in my opinion. I don't know how long it can last, and it doesn't last constantly. I'd like to see him do better. I'd also like to see the media, and this is still in my wheelhouse, I get it. I'd like to see the media be far more responsible and act more like it did in the 70s than it does now.
And let's give Susan the last word.
I think everybody needs to be held accountable. I think that no matter what level, whether it's a local level, a state, or congressional, I think it's important that we just don't tolerate it anymore. Same thing on social media. It's all fed into the same thing.
And speaking of social media, I hate to belabor this point, but before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about people who are talking about who is responsible for the bombs being mounted to politicians, CNN and Robert De Niro. Shannon says, stop the suspense. Which DNC sponsor got a kickback from Clinton to do this? Well, since the Muslims don't launder as much money through her foundation as they used to, it could have been Soros. Michael says, when you spew hate, President Trump, what do you expect from your hate group followers? They just want to please you. These are sad times because of you. Remember Charlottesville? These are good people on both sides. See what you have created. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast. Rob's head is okay. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report.